as soon as we get out of the truck, we're flying a drone over.
You should never be applying a fungicide or even a herbicide without a foliar with it. A well-fertilized crop gets up, matures, and senesces quicker.
We haven't been really touring a whole lot, but I mean, we have been down to the Regina area, out west. It's just been kind of hitting every time we look at the radar, we're getting rain. But the good part is, I think a lot of the guys the canola's looking really well. Cereals are looking really well. I've heard some good reports on mustards looking really well. And even some of the parts up in the Northeast where I thought it would be completely drowned out. I just had a gentleman that told me that he only lost about 10%, which is really, really good. Unfortunately, the pulses are taking a hit, whether it's, the guys have been spraying the chemical and then they got the rain afterwards and pushing that down into the root zone, or just too much rain. And usually what we're doing now is as soon as we get out of the truck, we're flying a drone over and you can really see in the fields where uh, there's parts in the field that are really bad, and then there's some parts in the field that are pretty decent. So in some cases, yeah, it's a bad year for pulses. And then we're getting hail, we're getting rain, thunderstorms all the time. So now we're having to deal with that. But overall, it's better than I expected. Crops are catching up. We do have some late ones, but I mean it's coming along. We've had some heat now, so I think everything is optimistic. Fungicides are going on in a lot of places. I think they're better than what I thought maybe about 3 weeks ago. I think things are really coming along.
What are you hearing out there, Greg?
Well, we're hearing the same thing. Now, I haven't been walking any fields, but my staff that are dealing with people out west are saying exactly the same thing that Darren's saying. It's hit and miss. Some areas are catching up, other areas are flooded out, but pretty much as Darren called it.
All right, well, folks, just curious, folks, tell us where you're from and what your crop status is, and we can share that with the rest of the group. I did have a little bit of a video here I wanted to share where Darren Sander was live in the field. You guys did an awesome job of throwing up the drone out there. And
yeah, so unfortunately, Darren did want to be here, but he just has had some prior stuff to do. So
okay, no problem. Okay, I'm gonna play this video now. Can you guys? I want to make sure that I get when I share this, I get the proper. I gotta make sure I got share sound, so you should be good there now. And I'm gonna go to share windows here. Technology, hey, wonderful when it works. Okay, is this good? If you guys can't hear or see this for whatever reason, please let me know. Okay.
Hi, it's Darren here from our farm, Sander Farms out by Sovereign, Saskatchewan. We're just getting ready to do some in-crop spraying. We're all done with the herbicides. Cereals are just starting to head. Canola is starting to bloom. So because of the wet conditions this year and the heavy crop coming, we will be putting a fungicide on everything. And so we're going to be also taking the opportunity to put foliar fertilizer down at the same time. So at this time of the year, canola of course gets the react, higher boron, higher sulfur, more micronutrients. And typically that is what we put on the derm as well at this time of the year to bump that protein up, higher sulfur. If we do have some crops that are going to start to really water stress, so as I said, we're very wet like most places are this year, then we will use the Rebound on there. Higher phos, really good for water stress and taking the stress out of the crop. So At this stage, if it doesn't rain anymore, we'll react on everything, but if we get any more rain and if anything starts to suffer a little, we will switch to the Rebound for sure. So yeah, again, great opportunity when we're fungiciding to get some foliar nutrients out there and really tickle this crop along. We're just looking at our durum here. So it's full flag leaf. We got some heads just starting to pop out of the shoots here. Typically we do our foliar fertilizer pretty quick here, just very early heading, but this year with the heavy crop and the constant rain and water pressure, we are going to put fungicide on this crop for the fusarium, so we're going to have to wait here till a little later staging so that we can just do everything at once. But yeah, very nice crop, and at this point everything is looking really well. Just looking at the canola here on our place, off to a fantastic start to the season. We've had a fair amount of rain, but not as much as some, so we're not suffering here yet. I guess probably just perfect for the canola. Typically we put our foliar fertilizer on here at elongation stage with the React. This year we've waited because we are going to put fungicide on here as a preventative. It's just such a heavy crop and it's raining every other day and the ground won't dry out, so we are going to put some fungicide down. So we're going to just wait probably till about 30% bloom and hit her with some fungicide and some React, and then wait for harvest.
Just waiting for harvest. I love that. So there was a couple things I caught in there. Darren, maybe you can speak to this, and then Greg, you can follow up on it. Well, are we changing our decisions a little bit on, pairing fungicide and foliar applications? Because maybe some of these areas before, they typically wouldn't be getting fungicides, but now they got a crop coming, they've had rains, all of a sudden, hey, I've got to change my strategy a little bit from year to year, right?
Well, I mean, I've always been an advocate of foliars. I kind of think that herbicides, fungicides, and even sometimes pesticides, I mean, could have a foliar in them. So yes, we are getting a lot of calls about guys going out there with the fungicides this year. It's just wet. I mean, we're going out there, you know, 11 o'clock in the afternoon or in the morning or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and our pants are completely soaked. So it is a good idea, and I think Greg would be the guy that could really speak on this on why we should be putting some kind of a foliar in with the fungicide when we're out there. But I just think that, I mean, a crop's potential, I mean, is there. I mean, and we just keep losing because of stress and everything else. So if we can add, a fungicide will help protect that yield, but so a foliar will help that crop reach its potential, whatever it may be in whichever region it is.
Well, even more important than that, Darren, fungicides, most people don't realize that fungicides do set a crop back. The crop has to deal with that fungicide. It is something that is designed to kill a plant, that fungus. So the plant has to metabolize it. So putting a foliar with it's going to help the plant go through that stress. So you should never be applying a fungicide or even a herbicide without a foliar with it to help the plant deal with that impact of either the fungicide or the herbicide. So I strongly recommend a foliar with any of those applications.
Is doing the fungicide a little bit new for some of these drier areas because they just got a crop? And then what do you do if you're in the north and things are getting drowned out and it's a different kind of stress? Are you still keeping the same playbook, Greg, or what do you think?
Well, even more so, it's drowned out. These plants, either in a real hot, dry condition or in a waterlogged condition, these root systems are not functioning properly. And in a dry condition, they actually start to go a bit dormant, and we want to keep the sugars flowing in the plant to keep those roots alive. So when they finally get rain, that they can respond. And in a wet crop, these roots are dying back, and they're going to be attracting disease, particularly fusarium, and being able to keep the sugars moving in the plant and help that plant basically deal with the death of those roots and start reestablishing new roots. It's important to keep some foliars on those plants we want to keep the sugars moving, and we want to keep the sugars moving to the root system. And the root system's not taking up the nutrients; it's not providing the plant with nutrients. So the only option we really have is a foliar to keep that thing moving.
Yeah, one of the things that we're seeing out there this year is where we had lots of rain in the beginning here is shallow rooting. And that's one of the things that CropAid is a specialist in is making sure you have good roots. What sort of difference is like a soil health program making on getting you good roots in the first place? And then what happens here if you do have shallow rooting and things get really hot? We could go from adequate moisture to challenges pretty quick, I would think. Hey, what do you want to talk on that first, Darren?
Well, I mean, like I say, with the CropAid system, I mean, we do help, eliminate or reduce some of that compaction in the soil. So the plants do have every potential to root down. It's just unfortunately when we get so much rain and the soil is so saturated. I mean, we're almost at field capacity in a lot of these places. The roots struggle. There's just no air in there, and almost in an anaerobic environment. I mean, soil health, it does help because, I mean, I look at it as, we have this yield and stress just starts reducing our yield all the time. Every time we get a stressor, we reduce yield. So on a good soil health program, your plants should also be healthier. So the way I look at it is that if we can keep our plants healthier and keep some of this abiotic and biotic stress away, we will do better. Then maybe in another system where, I mean, we do have the same kind of root zones, but I mean, we just have a poor soil and even an unhealthy crop. I mean, and that's why uh, going out there and tissue testing and just monitoring your crops are so important right now. Because I mean, you have a lot invested into that crop. You have hundreds and hundreds of dollars per acre. And I mean, if we have to go out there and spray and spoon feed it along, I think it's completely worth it. But I mean, yeah, a soil health program, I mean, healthy soil and healthy plants will do better in these stress environments.
Sarah, you've got your hand up, so I'm not sure if you're wanting to come on and discuss in person, so to speak, or if you just hit the wrong button. But if you keep your hand up, I'll certainly let you come on and ask a question. If anybody else has any questions, please throw them in the chat or the Q&A. But Greg, I'm wondering, you do thousands of soil tests and tissue tests every year. What happens in these situations where you're front loading for a certain amount of nutrient uptake and then it becomes really wet, or you had more of a crop than you expected in a dry area? Do you have to adjust for that in your foliar program, or should you be soil testing and tissue testing all the way along, or how do you guys manage that?
Well, definitely tissue testing all through the season to help you deal with some of these environmental conditions and really see what's going on in the plant. And it's really important to start early because that plant's going to upload its yield potential in early season. Potassium plays a major part of that. Talking about root development and some of these droughted conditions, we want to make sure there's zinc and manganese in that foliar because that the zinc's going to help differentiation and drive that root deeper. The manganese is going to support the immune system. So we really want to make sure that's happening. But in either dry conditions or wet conditions, the most limiting factor is potassium uptake. And that's your yield driver. That's what gives this crop the yield. So we want to make sure that our potassium levels are where they should be. I don't know how many people on the call are using tissue samples, but if you'd like, I could walk through a few tissue examples and just explain how to read them and what they mean, because most people don't understand or don't really know how to read them. Do we
Yeah,
want?
go ahead and share that. I'm just going to put out a little bit of a quiz to everybody as far as have you pulled a tissue test this season or not? And we had some folks chime in. While you get that going, Greg, you can go ahead and share that. We had Daryl from Canada, Alberta, saying things are looking great. It's been warm and going to need some rain soon to keep it backwards. That's kind of what I was talking about. If you got shallow rooting and all of a sudden you get this heat and no rain, you can go backwards pretty quick. And then we had Central BC, absolutely devastating drought here. That's interesting. Harry Siemens, God bless you, is saying Winkler, Manitoba, some really good, some drown out. Martin Bourne is saying Manitoba's okay, but had some hail. We've had really crazy storms. And Lauren Dumaine is saying the prairies are in good condition. So go ahead, Greg, walk us through what you got there, and then I'll get back to this poll of how many folks are using tissue tests here. And a lot of agronomists in the group, so we're probably going to have a relatively high score.
Okay, so anyhow, tissue tap sampling or plant analysis is very subjective to what's going on in the crop, and most people misinterpret how to read them. It's not as black and white as it should be. A lot of times, a low analysis on your report could be because of rapid growth of the crop, and if you're doing everything right in a crop, you should a tissue sample should drive you crazy because you'll have to keep up with it. So our reports and our analysis are based on our own research data. Most of our database is coming from in-field research. They're not global averages. They're based on performance. So there's some real solid information with the ranges that we put in there. You look at a tissue sample, when you start growing a crop in the early stages, you want to make sure all these little bars are in a sufficient or better zone. Think about each of these bars as being the fuel gauge for that nutrient. And as a crop performs, it's going to start using that fuel. And the higher the level you've got those nutrients in to start with, the more fuel you've got taking that crop forward. So we want to begin with good sufficient level at the start. And what's going to happen as this crop starts to go through the season, these levels will start to drop off. And like I said, if you are doing a really good job, this should drive you crazy. I get many growers call me and say, "Oh, you must have screwed up at the lab. This tissue sample says my crop's absolutely terrible, but it's the best crop I've ever grown." Keep in mind, if you have a good crop, it's going to use nutrients and it's going to use it fast. This is a sample of a corn crop early from one of the highest producing corn crops I've worked with. This is over 300 bushel of corn in one of our research sites. It's a large field, but averaged over 306 bushel. And you can see here we started out in good shape. But this is that same field later in the season. Again, this crop is pushing over 300 bushels. The fact that these levels are dropping off, in fact, my nitrogen and my phosphorus levels are low, does not mean this crop is no good. It means it's really pushing. The idea here is you need to get into this crop and make sure you top up those tanks. So think of these little bars as a fuel gauge in your car. And if you've got a long ways to go, you want to keep topping that tank up to get there. If you're just about ready to harvest, it's not as important. But we want to get to this crop and keep these things topped up. Looking at this report here, when I look at a report, I want to make sure that I'm topping these tanks up before I get to that point of no return. Now, that red line there is what I would classify as a deficient zone where it's almost impossible to make up the difference. So we want to make sure that we're watching this crop through the growing season and keeping an eye on this so that we can top these tanks up before we get past that critical stage where it's basically going to be impossible to fix that deficiency or fix that nutrient demand for that crop. So again, a lot of people look at this backwards. They don't understand that just because the nutrients are dropping does not mean they're deficient. It means the crop is using it and using it very aggressively. And that's why it's very subjective. When you look at a tissue report, you have to compare it to the biomass you're producing, and you want to make sure you're there. When it comes to potassium, we want to make sure potassium's at the top end in the early 30 days because that's when the crop is starting to develop. And if we don't pay attention to that, you might have a good looking tissue report right through the season because there's no crop demand. And again, we want to see this. We want this thing to drive you crazy as you go forward. So we need potassium early. For every pound of nitrogen a crop needs early, it needs 3 pounds of potassium. And that's going to come from the soil or some other means of side dressing or foliar feeding to keep that up to where it should be. So we want to make sure we address that really early. If potassium levels in early tissues coming back, dry soils or wet soils, get out there with some top dress application or some foliar feeding using a potassium carbonate to see if you can't bring that up. And you might actually not see the range come up within a sufficient range for that stage. But as a crop moves into the next stage, hopefully we get it into that right stage as we go to the next stage. So we really want to make sure we address this early because it becomes a real problem. We have to keep in mind that potassium is how the plant uses sunshine. We have low sunshine, we need more potassium. We got lots of sunshine, potassium availability is not as big a problem. But how this plant synthesizes or converts sunlight energy to photosynthate is all about the potassium and the potassium energy in that crop. So it's really important to keep that level up where it should be. In our plant monitoring program, it starts out looks like this. And another thing people do wrong with tissue samples is they take a tissue sample to react to what's going on. You don't put fungicides on after the disease is there. You know it's coming. You know conditions are right, so you put a fungicide on as a preventative. You should be thinking about your foliar programs the same way. In doing a plant monitoring program, you know where you're at. You know that that field's low on a particular nutrient. You should have a strategy in place to deal with that. Um, and then you take a tissue sample to see if that strategy is working or if you need to increase it. So even though we turn tissue samples around in 24 hours, you should not be looking at the tissue sample coming back. You should have a pre-programmed program to deal with these. And the nice thing about our plant monitoring program is it actually has these little bar graphs on the bottom that show you kind of the trend line of where that nutrient's going. So you see in advance the direction that nutrient's heading so that you can be more reactive to it. So this plant monitoring program really helps you manage the crop. And the way you set this up is you soil sample your field, and you've got good and bad spots, average spots, and you set up sampling areas in a field. You don't walk the whole field and pull samples. You go to these specific spots, these site-specific spots to take your samples from, and that's how you monitor the crop through the season. Think about that spot as being your fuel gauge on that field. And you might have a bad spot, and you might have an average spot, and looking at how you manage that crop. And then you go out there continually and take that sample, and you can see the progression of the nutrient. And the forecast here we have on the bottom of these little graphs to kind of give you an idea of which direction that's heading. So that's really how you should use a tissue sample. It should be more of a proactive program. You already have a pre-developed foliar program in place that you're going to implement, and you're going to modify that based on what these results coming back tell you. Either put more on or less on, depending on what you're seeing in that crop. That makes sense.
Absolutely. Darren, when you're looking at all this, what's some of your takeaways? How do you guys approach it at CropAid?
You know, basically the same way. I mean, like I said, I look at it as, I mean, all these the farmers out there, you put hundreds of dollars into per acre into your field, and then why walk away from it and then have no idea what it's doing later? So I'm a promoter of tissue tests. You kind of see what you're doing, you kind of see maybe what you did wrong, and maybe what you need to be catching up on. And also too, I mean, if we have canola growing in this crop, in this field this year, and I mean, if we're coming in and we're low on, like Craig said, potassium or boron, well, we know that in 2 years, if you're coming back into that field, that we should be addressing those issues, because without knowing, we're all striving for more yield. Well, we could be leaving yield out there just for a simple tissue test and knowing what's going on. It's just like checking your work. And if you don't check your work, I mean, what are you leaving out there? You could be leaving, 15, 20, 30, 60, $100 an acre out there just for a simple little improvement or an adjustment that you could have made or you can make in the future. So I promote them. I think they're a good thing. I think anybody can do it. I think the cost is not even, it's not an issue. The turnaround, like Greg said, is in 24 hours when they get it. It's quick. I'm all for them.
The other thing you need to keep in mind, and I have this.
Greg, do you mind taking your shearing off? Unless, do you have anything? Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
I got a couple more slides I want to just share with you.
Okay. I wasn't sure if you're done or not.
One particularly is this one here. This is how the plant basically moves photosynthate through the plant and kind of how potassium plays a role. Potassium and nitrogen have to marry up at the root surface of 1-to-1. It translocates up that xylem up into the plant. The nitrates break off to produce the proteins, amino acids, this sort of thing. And the potassium picks up the photosynthate from that leaf, loads it into the phloem, and redistributes it through the plant down through that phloem. If there's not enough potassium in the system stagnates. The nitrates accumulate, the plant stays rank green and doesn't do anything because there's not enough potassium to empty the warehouse. So we need to understand that and understand that this process works this way. The other thing too, and this is something we'll talk about here, is boron plays a major role in maintaining the structure of that phloem. If something disrupts the phloem, then I can't move the photosynthase away from that tissue, and again the system stalls or stands still. When you look at boron in its maintenance of that phloem, you can see on the left-hand side here a well-designed, well-developed phloem with good, decent boron levels. On the right-hand side, you see disruption of the cells in the phloem and just not a good conduit to move things, and that's because of boron deficiency. Anytime your boron's low, you're losing yield. So we really have to pay attention to that relationship on keeping this crop moving forward because it is very important. We look at nitrates in plant. This happens to be a potato crop. This is a crop where a consultant was talking to me and said, I don't know what I did wrong. My nitrates are accumulating in this plant. I didn't put excess nitrogen on. It didn't rain. What's happening here? Well, I said, go back and look at your earlier tissue samples. Right from the start, you're low in potassium and low in boron. This is not a nitrogen problem. This is an imbalance between potassium and boron. The plant cannot use nitrogen effectively. So we need to understand these relationships when we're managing a crop because we have a tendency to knee-jerk with nitrogen and just say it was too much or too little. In this particular case, if this grower was to stop using nitrogen on this crop and not address the potassium boron condition, that field would likely open up to verticillium and just be a real problem. So make sure we're addressing it and we understand the physiology and the relationship between these nutrients before you you become reactionary. The biggest problem I have in Western Canada is the fact that we're afraid of boron. I've had many cases where growers have said they got everything right. This happens to be a field where the growers thought everything was perfect. Great year, things were going great. I walked in off the headland because they dared me to find a deficiency. First tissue I pulled, I found a boron deficient leaf. And again, in a potato crop, we need to be over 30 part per million to get rid of this type of thing. Again, this crop is losing yield because my phloem is going to be disrupted. And I took this back to the lab. It came in at 27 part per million. So again, understand what the critical range is. Don't leave it to guess. We need to know. And there's too many people out there telling us that boron is not important. And the more research we do, the better yields we have is from using boron levels at the level we're talking about. Darren's talking about soil health. We've got lots of research now telling us that our microbial activity is very much influenced by boron application. In this particular case, it's not crop specific. It's saying the best microbial activity comes from a field that has an application of 3 to 4 pounds of actual boron per year to keep these organisms healthy. Not just for the plant. Plant needs certain levels of boron in the plant to do what it's supposed to do. But if we want to have healthy biologicals in our soil, we got to feed that field some boron. So with that, I'll shut up.
I always love listening to Greg. It's just like a major download from a mothership of agronomy that most of us can only dream of, obtaining half of the information. But Darren, when you listen to all that in your soil health program and your foliar program, what's sticking out to you?
Well, I think that in my experience, I mean, it's not everybody, but we have this dependence on nitrogen, phosphorus, and maybe in Saskatchewan, not we don't always think we have lots of potassium in the ground, and sometimes we think we have lots of sulfur as well, and we don't think of the micros like the borons and the magnesiums and the zincs and all that kind of stuff, and they're just as critical. And sometimes we can't get just someone to um, think about this and apply these micronutrients. But it's always, nitrogen and phosphorus and, sulfur. But we have to look at everything. And that's what a soil test will tell you. But that's also what a tissue test will tell you. I mean, are we needing more of these? And like I say, I think there's lots of yield that's left on the table that these farmers could have if we start looking at these other micronutrients and doing these tests because they will tell you. And I mean, I don't know if there's an agronomist out there that hasn't been on the A&L site. I mean, we've learned from it. There's so much information on that site. It is so well done that all this information is there, but I just think it gets overlooked too many times. And we're always looking for this new other thing to get yield, but yet it's because we're lacking something in the crops.
Well, the issue we have is that it's not easy to figure out um, what's going on. There's so many environmental impacts on the crops we're growing. Yes, you have lots of potassium, but a lot of that potassium is not available because your base saturation is so low. Weather permitting. Um, I've had lots of people that have looked at a crop that got in, looks absolutely fantastic, and they had me look at it, and 3 weeks later they called me up and said, "Come and see my crop. It's just dying. What's going
Yeah.
on?" Well, we got to keep in mind that when we produce and we get this stuff in the ground and it's in really good shape, and that crop sets up to have a fantastic yield, we might not have the nutrient load in the soils to take that crop home. So we've got to babysit that great crop. We got to babysit it to get it to the finish line because oftentimes it runs out of gas and just collapses. I mean, it's like the big old boy at the table. He's going to eat lots of groceries. Well, that crop that's got lots of potential is eating lots of groceries, and
Yeah.
if you don't feed it, it's going to fail. So I deal a lot also with greenhouse growers that have an enclosed environment and they got control of the environment more than we do in the field. And I keep telling them, one size does not fit all. You've got to keep an eye on that crop. Let the crop tell you what it needs. We can guess, but Mother Nature's not a friend. I mean, she's always throwing curveballs at us. But
Yeah.
if you use a tissue sample, let the crop tell you what it needs. And regardless of what your soil sample says, this crop's going to set up for a huge crop in good year, and it just might not have the nutrition base there to make it work. Or you get environmental conditions like we have this year, with too wet or too dry, whatever it might be, or too hot. You need to be able to feed that crop and help it overcome some of these biotic and abiotic stresses. And foliar feeding cannot feed the crop, but it can top up the tank and it can get us through these stress periods. I had a grower that had a crop go in, it went into flower. These are strawberries. He didn't have any water uh, at that point, he didn't irrigate. So I said, you better start a foliar feeding program. Keep the sugars moving. And he didn't have a drop of rain hit that field until after harvest. And because I had him going in on a 4 day schedule with some foliars, he took out one of the best crops he's ever grew, and he didn't destroy the plants. I mean, everything stayed healthy. So if we deal with environmental issues with side dressing, top dressing, foliar feeding, whatever we're doing, we can overcome a lot of these environmental problems we're having.
Yeah.
But if you don't know what you're doing, if you just can't guess at it, because you could put too much of something on and cause even more stress. So
Mhm.
let the crop tell you what its needs, and our plant monitoring program helps you manage that through. And again, you're not waiting for the results to come back because you've got a program in place and you see the trends going in the direction, so you can modify it on the go. But without having that kind of information, it's just you're just guessing.
Yeah.
We had 20% of the folks were running a plan around tissue testing. Nobody was using tissue testing just after they saw a problem, which is what we're talking about not doing here today, which is great. But 33% of the folks aren't tissue testing, and 22% of the folks don't use tissue tests. So, or 33% had said no, not yet. 22% had they prefer to cry into a handkerchief, which is a little bit of a country song. Um, Darren, you guys have a couple different foliars. How do you know when to use which and why, and when would you switch it up based on conditions this year?
Just like Darren said in the video, we do have two. We do have the Rebound, and it's like a 71305, and it's got the micros, like it's got manganese, iron, boron, molybdenum, zinc, and copper in it. As well as we do put amino acids and peptides in there. We find that that really helps out. And then we usually do that one with the herbicide. We have found crops really do better. We don't get that flash from the chemical. Even soybeans, we have Danny out in Bossier, and he says like the guys around there, they'll spray their soybeans and they turn that lighter green with the rebound. He doesn't get that. His crops stay green. So we know that one works really well with herbicide. Uh, Unfortunately, hail does come along, and we've had so many great reports of guys going out there with some fungicide and the rebound, and they're quite amazed at how well that canola comes back. Wheat to a certain point. I mean, of course, if the stems are damaged, but we get some good reports back. I just got a picture back where a gentleman sprayed the rebound on a crop. 24 hours, that crop was already changing color. So it goes in really fast. So that's usually, when we want a crop to rebound from hail or wind or something like that. Water stress because the phosphorus and the other micros. And then the other one is the react. And that's a 4-3-6-10. And it's got the micros in it as well. More micros than the rebound. And that's kind of later on, canola, just about bolting into flowering and say same as all your pulses around that flowering, as it's really wanting more nutrients. You can go on later as well. And then also in the wheat weeds, you kind of wait till a little bit till that flag leaf to a little bit further with the react. Not saying that, if you have all rebound that you can't put that on either, but that's kind of how I split the two. And yet we've had some guys that say, "Hey, I've just bought React. Can I put it on everything?" And sure. So there's really no wrong way. I would rather see you put a foliar in than not. Um, Even if it may not be the exact right one or the exact right time, I think it's still very beneficial. So that's how kind of we split them up. We have guys going on 2 times with foliars. Some guys go 3 times. They've seen the benefits of spraying that on. And yet we still have some farmers, I mean, and also too, I mean, we get to a point where a crop is not looking that good. And the question is, how well am I yield? How much more am I going to put into it? But if you're going out there with a fungicide and spending that money, why not go in with another $5 or $6 foliar and give it some nutrients along with it? I mean, if you're going to invest the money into fungicide, put some nutrients in there and really help those plants along. Um, and we have also farmers that go there with just foliar. It's a foliar pass. They will do if they're not doing fungicide, they will still go out there with just foliar. They've seen the difference. And I mean, I don't argue with farmers. If a farmer tells me he's been out there with a foliar and he sees the difference and it's a benefit for him to get in that sprayer in a July and go spray his crops, then I take it as it works. So, and that's how I kind of split the two up.
especially if it's a dry July,
Yep.
because keep those sugars moving.
Yep.
Again, I said earlier, you keep those roots happy and healthy. When you do get the rain, you don't have to regrow roots. The roots are there ready to start taking up nutrients and water. So, a good foliar program, as I demonstrated in that strawberry with that strawberry grower, can keep a crop going even in a dry condition.
You mentioned mixing those foliars, Darren. Can you tank mix these foliaricides? Because some folks have said you can't.
Uh, to date, we have mixed foliars with almost 98% of the herbicides out there. There are a few that will say, and we also need to keep checking on these chemical books because there are chemicals that do say no fertilizers, and then obviously they don't go in, but mostly yes they do. Um, Now some people will say, well, will they heat up the herbicide? In some cases they can a little bit, but I mean it's sometimes usually an adjuvant or surfactant that we're actually heating up, and also too if we're going out there if it's 27 degrees. 28 degrees and 80% humidity. I mean, a chemical can hurt a plant as well. So in most cases, they can go in unless the label or in the chemical book says not to add a fertilizer, but they can go in. And same as fungicides. We always got to check labels. But to date, I don't think there's not one fungicide that we have not been able to mix with or apply with. But I mean,
Usually when they say not to put a fertilizer in, they're talking about the possibility of alkaline hydrolysis causing the fungicide not to work. As long as you're keeping an eye on your pH in your tank, should not be a problem.
and we do use the citric acid as a pH
Um,
adjuster, and we tell everybody, get that, adjust the pH, for your glyphosates, glufosinate, herbicides, fungicides, pesticides. Make sure that pH is correct.
Especially with glyphosate.
Greg, can you talk to us a little bit about the the process of tissue testing and your turnaround time, getting this done if people want to get it done in a short period of time. And you had some opinion too on these handheld testers that people are using on accuracy and whatnot.
Well, I don't want to knock my competition, but every one of these handhelds that are used in the field today, they calibrated the equipment at our laboratory, so we've seen the results. I've worked with NIR systems for a long, long time. For some of these handhelds, for nitrogen and potassium, they might be okay, but for the other ones, there's less than 50% correlation to what's going on in the plant. So, for a quick reference in the field, by all means, I can do the same thing with a refractometer, but you really need to rely on a good lab test to be sure that you know what's happening.
And I would like to add to that, I mean, if we're going to it likely takes, it would take me longer. I mean, if I'm busy and that kind of stuff, to get the sample to ANL than it would be to get the analysis. I mean, I can go take a tissue test, and if I'm going to a peer later or something, and if I get them in that, get them to ANL, I can get them in there in a day and a half, or within 2 days, I can get them there. And then I think Greg said, what, 24 hours, I'm getting those analysis emailed back to me. Well, that's pretty quick. So,
If you can stuff those tissue samples into a cardboard perlator envelope. So you got our tissue bags, you put the samples in the tissue bag, then you can get 4 or 5 or 6 of these tissue bags in a perlator envelope. Um, don't mark it don't mark it air freight, just mark it ground, because perlator told me that all those perlator envelopes go air freight regardless. So they're in our facility the next morning.
oh, another question, Greg. So, like, say if a guy or somebody wants to take a tissue test, is there a certain bag, or like can we just use any kind of bag, or you don't want a Ziploc bag, of course, but like just a brown paper bag, or what would you recommend?
Lunch bag's perfect because it's about the right size. We need about half a pint loosely packed leaf material, so a good lunch bag is what we need. Keep it in paper because the paper absorbs some of the moisture. Plastic, it could go to mush before it gets to us, so don't put it in plastic. If you're going to take a tissue sample, let's say you have a whole day taking samples, and you're going to be the next day before you can ship it anyhow, just leave the bag open. Let the moisture out, and that should be sufficient.
Love it. Well, what is the economics on applying foliars? How do you view that? Because obviously the question is always, does it pay for a farmer? Darren, do you want to speak to that? Then we'll let Greg take that on.
Uh, I guess it depends. I mean, if you're looking at a $5 or $6 foliar, if you look at again, I go back to how much money you put in per acre into that field to grow that crop, hundreds of dollars. And I mean, you are looking for that crop to not only pay all your bills and to feed your family, and I mean to grow your business. I mean, you have a lot riding on that. So is another $5 or $6 foliar, once or twice a season, just to ensure that that crop is at its peak, that it has everything that it needs to produce that whatever potential yield that is. I'm not sure if that's. I think the cost is not that much. Um, and that's how I look at it. Now, I mean, if we're looking at, I mean, I'm not picking on anybody, and I'll just throw a price out there. But I mean, if you got a foliar that's for $30 an acre, well, okay, now we need quite a bit back to pay for that. And would we go on twice? Likely not. I just threw out a number there, but I mean, if something's around that $5, $6, you go on there once or twice. I mean, we're looking at $10, just to make sure that plant hits its yield potential for that year. I don't think it's that much, and I think it's worth it to me, because whatever. I mean, $12. I mean, in canola, that's not even a bushel. And I'd hate to sit there and leave 2 or 3 or 4 bushel on the table for the price of 3/4 of a bushel. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
yeah,
I know what you mean.
yeah.
Now, if we're worried about the third F word, beyond foliar and fungicide, we're worried about frost. Should we be putting on anything that keeps the crop greener longer, or should we worry about just bringing it in? What's your guys' take on
When
that?
it comes to frost, let's just back up and look at physiology of plant. First of all, the plant's going to develop its yield potential in the first 30 days. And then all we can do is make sure it gets that yield potential. How much we lose is because we don't react to what we should be reacting to. The
Yeah.
other thing too is a well-fertilized crop gets up, matures, and senesces quicker. So if you do not pay attention to the efficiency of crop nutrient uptake and how that plant's moving forward, it will stay greener longer. And I don't want that long green, prolonged green. I want to see it mature properly. So if you're worried about frost, the the better job you do at getting that, providing that plant the nutrients, the faster it's going to mature and put its yield out there. So too often we're caught with a frost because we've had nitrates accumulate. It stayed rank green too long. We didn't have the right balance of nutrients, so the crop's not metabolizing properly, and it's just hanging on rather than doing what it's supposed to do. So again, I say if you've got good balanced nutrition, everything's in place, it'll come out of the ground, it'll grow up, and senesce faster.
What's your take on that, Darren? Are you worried about the crops coming in this year, or you think we're gonna come in just nicely here?
I think we're gonna make it. I mean, if you everybody's kind of tuned into the weather and this El Nino and all that kind of stuff, I think we're going to be okay. Uh, you know, they say. I mean, there's one guy, the one farmer I talked to, he goes, he goes, my crops will stay out there till November. I'll be all right. So, but I mean,
Yeah.
crops are coming along now. We've just heard some guys got seeded pretty late. June past June 15th. I mean, that's pretty late. But no, I think we're going to be all right. Crops are coming along. And I mean, most canola now there's a lot of canola now, full flower. We got flax, I mean, full flower. So we're not too far behind. We're catching up. So,
Well, we're getting to the top of the hour here. I appreciate all this knowledge, and I always enjoy listening to Gary Patterson and hearing from you guys as well. Darren, you're going to be going around the countryside here with a shovel very shortly,
yep.
taking a look at crops. So tell us a little bit about some of the stuff that you guys are looking at on the tailgate there when you're out and about.
Well, I mean, when we do our crop checks, and I mean, this is very important with CropAid. This is, and I think our customers really enjoy it. We get out there and we just look at the soil. I look at the compaction. As we have products for sale, and as we tell these customers what our products do, we want to prove it. So we want to prove if the compaction is gone or better rooting, there are healthy plants or comparisons. Everything that we tell a customer that you'll see with our products, we want to show that in the field, and we're doing it. We've had crop checks already. We've had some very, very happy customers. Even though we've had lots of rain, we're still seeing some good differences. Um, it's just a good thing to go get out there and see guys. And walking the fields is a good thing. A lot of people they don't do it as much as they should. We do not walk in the field without a shovel. Lots of people do, and we want to see what that root development is and how things are going. And I mean, like we were at a pea field there last week. Now we thought it was pretty bad shape until we put the drone up. We've seen some really good areas, some medium areas, and we go in there and we dig. So that's all point of it. I mean, just getting out in the field and showing these guys what the product's doing.
It's a great exercise to get out with somebody knowledgeable and look at your field with a shovel, and it's a good habit. So, how do folks get a hold of you if they want to work with you or hear from you, Darren?
You can just go to the website. We have an email address there. We have a 1-800 number there, or I think 1-866. Just go there. Just drop an email. If you want just a general whatever. If you want to speak to me, just say that. Just say I want Darren Fischer to give me a call. I will definitely do that. I will talk to anybody. Farmer, agronomist, it don't matter. We can just have a chat about we'll have a chat about anything. I mean, we're just here to
Yeah.
I mean, we work in this industry of agriculture, and I mean, our goal is to help these farmers grow the best crops they can. And if they do that, we all stay in business. So we can all work together to try to do that.
Go to CropAid Nutrition on YouTube there. I know that video didn't play very good because of my Wi-Fi, and I apologize, but it was a great video. Well done, Nicole, and to the team there at CropAid. And there's lots of great educational videos on the website as well. You guys provide a lot of free educational webinars. And Greg, if folks want to work with you, what do you recommend to them? Is there still time to get some tissue testing done if they haven't? It's just as a percentage, I think there's lots of room for more tissue testing on planet Earth, I would say.
Our tissue program starts early, but we've got lots of people just coming on board now. Tissue sampling, depending on the crop, will go right through till mid to late September, depending on the crop. So yeah, there's lots of time yet. If you're trying to guess, again, as Darren's saying, it costs some money to put this stuff on. So if you need to be putting the right stuff and addressing the right issues. I mean, Darren's got some great mixes put there, but you can always add to them if you need to. If
Yeah.
you're light in manganese or light in boron, you're already got the vehicle going out there. You can always top them up depending on what your reports tell you coming back.
And that's absolutely true. We have a gentleman who uses our product, but he wants extra boron. And I think what it was like 40 acres out of a jug. So we just said with our product, just stretch that to about 50 or 55 acres because we have some in there. So you can add, and of course, that's what you should. And also, I want to point out too, if you guys, anybody who's watching this, if you want some good information, go to the ANL site. They have lots of great resources on there, lots of examples and everything that, I mean, you go spend a day on there, and I mean, it will open up your eyes to, what you're missing in your field and the potential that you could be missing. Lots of, like I said, most agronomists have been on the ANL site. And I know lots of people who go to different labs and they always come back to ANL. I mean, I do. It is just one of those good labs.
Yeah.
We also have some really good representatives from the field. My sales reps in the field, the technical reps, they all are trained by me and with me, and they're easy to catch by phone. You can call the lab. Beth is the agronomist on the desk. Either Beth or Mike or Chris are always in the office. They'll take questions and answer any question you have. If they can't answer it, they'll find me and get the answer, or you can call me directly. So we're there to help. We're there to answer questions. So feel free to call us at any time.
And I think that's one of the biggest things that, I mean, as someone who's taken a test, uh, any you can send a test to any lab and get that analysis back. But if you have any issues or have any questions, it's the lab you want to be able to call and have somebody explain that to you. And ANL does that very well. If you have any issues or questions, you get that explanation where some labs you just get the analysis and that's it. You're done. You don't know if you don't understand something, you're kind of on your own. So, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. Sorry for the technical issues. I appreciate your expertise, Darren, and thanks for coming on, Greg. You can catch Greg in the mastermind too. Looks like we've got a big crop coming out there. It's very exciting to see, even though it's not been a season without the typical adversity somewhere, a little bit everywhere. But if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. So that's farming in Western
Yeah.
Canada. But I appreciate everybody that signed up and attended today. And we are going to see you in person at Ag in Motion, Darren. You guys
Yeah.
have a booth there.
You
Greg, I
betcha.
assume that A&L Laboratories is there as well.
Yeah, as far as I know.
Where are you guys located if somebody wanted to find you guys, Darren?
I think no, we didn't move. We're in one of the tents, and you know something? We're like about a 5 minute walk from the beer gardens. We're in that vicinity there. Oh, we're booth 381. So what it is we'll be out
Yeah,
outside. We have a big tent.
yeah.
It's a big black, white, red tent. It says CropAid all over it. You can't miss us. And thank you, Nicole, for telling me it was where the booth was because I didn't know. But yeah, so that's where it is. So yeah, come by. I'll be there. I know the first day for sure. Come by, visit, talk, chat, see what we're all about. Always willing to talk with everybody. Thank you.
Yeah. Hi,
Bye for
everyone.
now.